On July 2nd, 1996, 36 15-mile-wide city-sized spacecraft appeared across the globe, positioning themselves over major cities around the world. These cities included the major U.S. cities of New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles, as well as foreign capitals like London and Moscow. Well, humanity spent much of July 3rd hoping and praying for a peaceful first contact with the visitors. By the end of the day, that proved not to be the case. Using satellites in orbit, the 36 city-sized spacecraft carried out an array of attacks against cities across the globe. Each of these attacks saw devastating weapons of mass destruction unleashed against these civilian population centers, leaving these cities in complete ruin. Following the first wave of alien attacks, which occurred on the evening of July 2nd, humanity began amassing a large counterattack. Carried out in the morning of July 3rd, this counterattack, while uncoordinated, did occur nearly simultaneously in almost every affected nation. And while the July 3rd counterattacks were a much larger ordeal that occurred across the globe, today's archive entry will focus specifically on the attack that took place over the ruins of the American city of Los Angeles, destroyed by a city destroyer the night prior. Following the destruction of Los Angeles, the city destroyer positioned over the city began to slowly make its way towards its next target, Colorado Springs. Meanwhile, in nearby American facilities, most notably El Toro, a Marine base operated near Los Angeles, a plan for a retaliatory strike was put together, and several Marine, Air Force, and naval aviation units put to the air to return fire against the invaders. At the heart of the American force carrying out this counterattack was VMFA 314, an American Marine Corps aviation unit known as the Black Knights. While the American force consisted of a variety of different aircraft, the main body of the strike force consisted of F-18C strike fighters armed with AIM-120 AMRAAM medium-range active radar-guided missiles and AIM-9 Sidewinder short-range heat-seeking missiles. The fighters approached the city destroyer as it was starting to depart the airspace over the ruins of Los Angeles. Arrayed out in a series of V formations, they fired a large volley of AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles against the city destroyer. However, it was quickly realized that these missiles had bounced ineffectively against the city destroyer's shields. After the failure of the first strike of AMRAAMs, the fighters broke off into smaller groups and approached to attempt an attack using their AIM-9 Sidewinders, which also failed to penetrate the city destroyer's shields. At this point now, fighters had approached the spacecraft so close that they had to take evasive maneuvers to avoid a collision, and most of them were able to avoid a collision. However, in response to this attack, these city destroyers released large swarms of small attacker strike craft. These small multi-role strike craft used primarily plasma weapons for offensive operations and were protected by similar shields to that of the city destroyers. As a result of the deployment of the attackers from the city destroyers, a large dogfight ensued over the ruins of Los Angeles. And while the American fighters tried to put up the best fight they could, during the entirety of the engagement, they had only managed to take down a handful of attackers, with their shields proving to be remarkably resilient. We see in this engagement that not only are the 20mm Vulcan Gatling guns in the noses of the F-18Cs ineffective at penetrating these shields, but AIM-9 Sidewinders are also unable to damage these vehicles, just simply knocking them off course. As alien attackers began to slowly overwhelm the attacking American fighters, they began to carry out counterattacks against American military facilities, which now could be clearly identified as the origin points of these counterattacks. This ultimately resulted in the destruction of several key American military facilities, bases like El Toro, which originated the fighters that carried out the battle over Los Angeles, as well as the destruction of NORAD, which basically wiped out the American chain of command. Ultimately, while a large dogfight does ensue, it's catastrophic for the human attackers, with most of the American aircraft being shot out of the sky and a few stragglers being able to scatter into the nearby deserts. This is where Captain Stephen Hiller, as well as fellow pilot Jimmy Wilder, were able to lead a pair of attackers into a tight canyon. In the pursuit throughout this canyon, however, Jimmy Wilder attempts to break off and is shot down by one of the attackers, while the other one pursues Captain Stephen Hiller into the tight turns of the canyon. After some complex fighter maneuvers, Captain Stephen Hiller is able to use his fighter's drogue parachute to blind the alien attacker, forcing it to fly into a cliffside and his exploding fighter. The resulting explosion does successfully bring down an attacker, being one of the only attackers downed during the entire engagement. This leads to the capture of the alien pilot on board the attacker. This would ultimately lead to humanity discovering the motives of the alien invaders after they attempt to carry out an autopsy on this pilot pilot at Area 51. So while the battle over Los Angeles and the July 3rd counterattacks as a whole are often viewed as a massive failure, in some sense they did play a significant role in the effort to gather intelligence on the invaders. Following this engagement, it became clear that the invaders did have advanced shielding technology that protected their vessels from human attack. It also became clear that to defeat the invaders, they would have to think outside the box, and most notably find a way to disable the alien shields, something that they would ultimately do prior to a counterattack carried out the following day on July 4th, a counterattack that would successfully bring down the alien invaders. And while Independence Day is a fascinating depiction of an alien invasion of Earth, if you'd like to learn about one of the original stories about an alien invasion of the planet, I'll leave a link in the upper right-hand corner to a video I have all about the War Machines from War of the Worlds, one of the first alien invasion fictions ever written. And if you have any other battles you'd like to see covered in future episodes of Battle Analysis and added to the archive, let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.